Fox and Friends weekend co-host Rachel Campos Duffy just visited the southern border and got a tour of Eagle Pass, Texas from our next guest, Lieutenant Christopher Olivarez with the Texas Department of Public Safety.
This is an area here that we've seen increased activity. You see all the different clothing that's been discarded, shoes, personal items.
This is someone's private property right here.
All this is private property. And what you're seeing here, this barbed wire, this is something that was put up by the state to try to, of course, stop some of the crossings that were taking place. But you see what they're doing now is some of the wet clothing, they use it to push down on the barbed wire, and that allows them to cross over. This is the federal government's job, is to secure the border. But right now, the state of Texas is having to bear this burden.
Who controls this area? I mean, honestly, is it the cartels?
The cartels.
Wow. Lieutenant, wanted to show those pictures there because it really gives people a sense of what it looks like and what it feels like. But, add to that what you're seeing on the ground.
Right, Jackie. So good afternoon. So right now I'm in Eagle Pass, Texas right now, and Governor Greg Abbott just arrived, and he's going to tour the area on the ground and in the air as well to see what's taking place here, and also to see the relationships that we've been able to develop with the Mexican authorities in Mexico. We've been working with them, conducting binational operations where they're able to surge resources on the Mexican side to help us control some of the areas where we see the increased crossings that are taking place. And what you just saw in that video right there with Rachel is when I took her out to those areas where we saw the areas that have increased activity, where migrants that are searching the border, where you see those single adults, those runners that are trying to avoid apprehension, and also the criminal activity that takes place along those areas. So we're trying to shut down those areas, control those areas, so we don't see continuous activity taking place along those areas of the border.
Yeah, and the cartels, you said, really control the areas. You were just being honest and frank about it. And we've been having so many conversations about people in America dying as a result of fentanyl that comes across the southern border that those cartels are profiting off of. Oftentimes, people are using fentanyl or replacing it within the drug production with respect to what people think they're buying. They think they're buying something X, which is rather harmless, and all of a sudden they take fentanyl and they die.
Right, and that's the whole focus of why the state of Texas has to step in and take some type of action, because the federal government has failed to safeguard Americans, failed to safeguard the country, and to go after these criminal organizations, these cartels that are manufacturing this lethal drug, fentanyl. We saw record numbers last month in April. CBP reported nearly 1,400 pounds of fentanyl seized along the border. That's the highest in 4 years. We have not seen a fentanyl crisis like we're seeing right now, and it's all because of the fact that we have this open border policy that's taking place, and the criminal organizations are continuing to exploit that.
And we look at Title 42 and the ruling today. So, it's sort of a Band-Aid, if you will, and it stays in place. But it's, well understood that there probably will be a challenge to it to try to move the courts towards lifting it. I mean, that's what this administration, the Democrats, that's what they want. It's part of the agenda to allow these illegal border crossings. And so, from your standpoint, from your position, trying to protect the country, you got the Band-Aid for now, but then what?
Right, Jackie, and I've always said it, I've continued to say it, that yes, Title 42 does help. It is a tool, obviously, to try to get some of these immigrants deported back to their countries. But one thing to keep in mind, too, and for the viewers to understand, ever since last year, even when the court ordered the federal government to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy, that's in place right now, even with Title 42, and we're still seeing record number after record number every single month. Last month, for the month of April, was a record high for DHS, over 234,000 encounters. That's with Remain in Mexico and Title 42 in place. So it goes to show you that even with these policies in place, we're still seeing record numbers, not only with immigrants, but also with criminal activity and with the drugs that are coming across our borders.
And part of the issue is if you lift Title 42 and the numbers per day, for example, start to double, which is what the estimates suggest that will happen, is that Border Patrol, Customs, everybody down there, even local law enforcement, all of the resources will be funneled towards processing people, right? Because we've given them this green light essentially to come across. And we really won't be able to protect the border from all the nefarious activity that continues as well.
Right, so you're right on point. So that's going to continue to deplete viable resources, federal resources, Border Patrol agents, ICE agents, all those that will be tied up processing. What that's going to do now is it's going to continue to expose these vulnerable gaps along the border, where you're going to see transnational criminal organizations continue to smuggle the drugs across, high-value targets such as high-profile immigrants from other countries, suspected terrorists, criminal gang members. That's where you're going to see that continued activity. So That's why it's very vital to have a policy in place. If you're going to remove Title 42, have a policy in place that's going to take an aggressive stance towards immigration. But also, one thing, Jackie, we need to focus on, not so much immigration, we need to focus on border security.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Final question to you. Residents, people who live in Texas and the other border states, what do people tell you? How do they feel about this? I know there's increased crime. They're worried. They feel like they have to protect themselves to a certain degree.
Right, so they're frustrated, because they feel now that the federal government has turned their back on them. They're not protecting them like they're supposed to be doing, but they're very grateful for the state of Texas for what we are doing, for what Governor Greg Abbott has been doing ever since last year with Operation Lone Star. We're grateful for the men and women of Texas DPS military that are surging the border trying to protect them. We have troopers that are working ranches because we're seeing how these immigrants are traversing through these ranches, damaging property. Ranch owners are losing livestock. They fear for their lives. They're having to change their everyday way of life because of this current crisis. So they're very grateful that we are out there. But again, it all falls back on the federal government, that this is their responsibility to secure the border.
And that really is the central point that we have to keep making over and over again. Lieutenant Christopher Olivarez, it's wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for the public service that you do every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.